Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Pat Doherty Podcast with me, your host, Pat Doherty. I've got a couple of things to plug up the top, so do bear with me. Friday, the 27th of June, I'm opening for the great Billy Darcy at the Comedy Store. He's got an encore show of his Sydney Comedy Festival show, and myself, Pat Doherty, will be opening. It will be fantastic. Make sure you get your tickets to that. If you're in the Bondi region, Friday the 4th, Saturday the 5th of July, I'm hosting the Bondi Festival Comedy Gala at the Bondi Pavilion. The lineups for each night are fantastic. I've hand-picked them myself. I've hand-curated this whole entire experience. You're going to have a lovely time. Make sure you get tickets to either the Friday the 4th or the 5th, or Saturday the 5th of July. Friday the 11th of July, I'm opening for Frenchie down in the Theatre Royal in Hobart. I'm not too sure how many people listen to this podcast down in Hobart, but if you are down in Hobart, make sure you get some tickets to that. That one will sell unbelievably quickly, as Frenchie is supremely popular. And lastly, Wednesday the 23rd of July. This is going out to all the Novocastrians. Wednesday the 23rd of July, I have a solo show at the Newcastle Comedy Festival at the Newcastle Comedy Club, so make sure you get some tickets to that. And as always, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, share the videos, like the videos, comment on the videos, rate and review on Spotify and iTunes. Let's get into the episode. Hello and welcome back to the Pat Doherty Podcast with me, your host, Pat Doherty. It's a pleasure to be here as always. If you're a first-time listener, I appreciate you being here very much. If you're a return listener, I appreciate you even more. I'm not going to lie, I appreciate the return listeners more than I appreciate the first-time listeners. Okay? But one can't exist without the other. So maybe I appreciate the first-time listeners even more. You know, but then I'm sort of negating the multiple time listeners' commitment. I appreciate the commitment factor. That's all I'm saying, you know. I hope you're very well out there in the world, wherever you are listening to this podcast. I'm here in the beautiful Sydney City. The weather has turned on. The winter has arrived, but it's still kind of sunny. It's been a weird one because as soon as summer rolls around, for the past couple of years, it's just been very rainy. You know, it's actually been some of the most dog shit summers in recent Australian history. It truly has. And the winters have tended to be exquisite, you know, brisk, slightly windy, but in terms of, you know, millimeters of rain, I think there's a big reduction. And I like that. As long as the sky is blue, if you can see a blue sky, I'm telling you right now, if you can see a blue sky, your mood changes for the better every single time, you know? Just do not give me cloud coverage. Out of all of the weather available to you right now in the world, on the planet Earth, windy with cloud cover has got to be the worst. You know, why am I living in Australia if I'm constantly experiencing cloud cover and wind? I don't want to be doing it. I don't need that. I don't need that at all. I just want blue skies. Give me about 26 degrees blue skies. Even if it's a nippy 26, I don't even mind, you know? Just let me walk around, shirt, maybe, a sort of a thin puffer at most. That's where I want to live. I want to live in a place when I wake up in the morning, all I really need is a thin puffer. And then when the day sort of kind of gets its act together, it goes, all right, brother, you're going to have to ditch that thin puffer because we're going to heat things up to about 26 degrees. We're going to let you bake in that under a big, beautiful blue sky. That's my kind of favorite. And that's what's been going on for the past couple of days. So that's all good. And like I said, I hope you're doing well. Crazy times, things going on that I don't really know about. Congratulations to Tom Walker, Sydney-based comedian, stand-up comedian, internet sensation Tom Walker. He is now part of the Australian Bake Off. He is a host on the Australian Bake Off. I'm not going to lie. When I read that news article for the first time, I thought, my initial thought was, what the fuck? Like that. That's what I thought. Now, before I continue, Tom Walker is one of the funniest dudes I've ever had the joy of being able to see perform and perform with, you know? I know a limited amount about him, you know, to the extent that we're friendly in comedy clubs and in green rooms, etc., etc. But to my knowledge, I understand that Tom Walker is a trained clown. He went to Goliath to be a trained clown. I didn't understand that he had any background in baking whatsoever. But he's got this new gig on the Great Australian Bake Off. And honestly, I might start watching it now. I had no interest in the program whatsoever beforehand, but I will watch the program now 1,000%. And also, to the best of my knowledge, Tom is like quite a successful streamer. So maybe it'll be interesting to see at his live shows in the future, of which I will attend, his streaming audience. I don't know what kind of demographic that is, his streaming audience. And then the demographic of people that have come to see him from the Great Australian Bake Off, The guy is a phenomenal mime. He's a brilliant mime. I want to see that incorporated into the program, I want to see him mime his way around a cupcake. If that's what's in store for us as the viewers, that show is going to be a rocket when it comes to the ratings, And honestly, it couldn't have happened to a better guy. There are a couple people on telly that I'm just sitting there being like, I hate the fact that you're the host of this. I hate the fact that you're on the panel for this, You call yourself a comedian. I never see you produce any content online, and I also never see you in any comedy club. So what are you doing? You're just like a mildly funny person, maybe. That should be the little thing. It should say their name and go, mildly funny person that's really good at emailing casting directors, maybe, or something like that. That's a lot of them, and I know that sounds kind of harsh, but it's true. But with Tom Walker, he is a genuinely funny dude that absolutely rips at the comedy club. So it's a treat. It's a treat to be able to see that he is he's on the telly now. One of the good guys. It's a win for one of the good guys. That's great. That's kind of all the real news that I've been keeping up to date with or seen as of recently. I did read another article about a lady that has been suffering for about 7 years. I'm gonna pull this one up really quickly because this was sort of like quite a bizarre little news article that I saw, which made me laugh. Let me get onto this here. I'm going to clip you. What am I going to do with you? I'm going to clip you here for a second. 7 years of pain. This is what I typed in to find the article. 7 years of 7 years of pain, man fart in face. This is the story. Woman's 7-year nightmare after partner farted in my face. A joke from an ex-partner left a woman in 7 years of pain because of the worst thing I have ever smelled. Oh my God. I honestly, I do sort of strive sometimes to be like, I float the idea in my brain being like, it would be crazy and so cool to be like a highbrow comedian, come up with like really interesting and intricate kind of jokes. But that kind of shit never makes me laugh as hard as this. A woman's 7-year nightmare after partner farted in my face. I'm such an idiot. I love it. But this is the other news article that I saw recently. So let's dive into this one. A woman says she was left with a 7-year infection after her boyfriend farted in her face. Though the pair have since parted ways, Christine Connell was plagued by a stuffy nose. A stuffy nose and facial pain for years afterwards. She traced her symptoms back to a fateful night spent in a hotel room, the Sun reports. Christine was laying in bed recovering from knee surgery when her boyfriend broke wind while he was changing in front of her. The content creator claims she's been battling sinus infections for 7 years since. But she didn't think to connect her health issues to a gassy incident until doctors took a culture sample from her nose. Sinus infections are inflammation of the sinuses, cavities in the nose, of the sinus cavities in the nose, cheeks and forehead, and are common after a cold or bout of the flu. They can be caused by a virus and tend to clear up on their own in a matter of weeks, though they can linger for longer if caused by bacteria or fungus. Christine, known as Christine Exploring online, shout out, said in a video, I realized that my ex-boyfriend got the best possible breakup revenge that anybody could ever get. I had a persistent sinus infection ever since he and I stayed in a hotel one night after I had surgery and he farted terribly. This can't be real. This cannot be real. I couldn't breathe, Christine added, saying she never smelt gas so vile. There's not anything that even compares to that. Now, this is hilarious, and I can't quite tell if she's just saying this to really G up an ex-partner. You know what I mean? Just to be like, you have, not only do you have the worst farts, but I'm going to embarrass you so much, I'm going to take this online and discuss in a public forum what horrible gas you have. And if she is doing that, good on her, dude. That's fucking unreal. Christine grappled with a constant sinus infection, which caused facial pain, a stuffy nose, thick green snot, and fever in the years afterwards. She even had a barrage of tests and scans to try and get to the bottom of it. Bottom of it? Thank you. That was easy. But her doctors, including 4 ear, nose, and throat specialists, seemed unable to figure out the cause of her infection. The travel influencer took to TikTok to reveal the results of her sinus tests in a clip captioned, I wish I was joking. It's E. coli. It's E. coli. Oh my God. E. coli is a group of bacteria that normally lives in the gut without causing harm, but some strains can make people sick, causing gut and urinary tract infections. You usually don't get E. coli in your sinuses because E. coli is from poop. That's hilarious. So I don't know. How does that get in your sinuses unless you have a boyfriend who farts disgustingly and you're forced to inhale it because you were so immobile after ankle surgery? Now, hang on a second. Previously, I think they wrote knee surgery. I'm just going to have a little look here. Let's have a look. What is happening? See, here it says, Christine was lying in bed recovering from knee surgery. And now if we go down here, it was an ankle surgery. And so we've found a couple of holes in the story here. And that is an alarming fact because I really, truly want to believe that she got farted on. I don't want to believe that, but like, I want to believe her side of the story. But I'm seeing a couple of, now my theory that she's trying to embarrass this guy is really coming to the fore here, is what I'm trying to say, you know? But I'll soldier on. Let's try and figure this out. In a follow-up video, Christine described the fart incident in more detail, explaining that she had been in bed with her ankle rested, once again the ankle, while her boyfriend was undressing, preparing to get into bed next to her. He was not clothed and standing between the two beds, she said. His butt was facing me, and then that's when the fart happened. I don't know if this was a planned attack, you know? Just this Sunday past, somebody told me some shocking news and I responded like this. I went, huh? Like that. And I was sort of tightening my stomach as I reacted and I farted. You know, I'm ashamed to say it. That's embarrassing. I was in a social circumstance. Luckily, it wasn't loud. And luckily, it didn't stink. Not nearly as badly as this one, clearly. You know? But we've all bent over and occasionally, if the time's right, depending on the food that we've eaten, we bust one out. You know? Who among us, mere mortals, haven't done one of those bend over accidental farties? Christine stressed that he was not intending to fart in my face. There we go. He was just getting in bed and her face happened to be in the path of the fart when it was released. Oh, man. When I say it was the worst fart I've ever smelled in my life, I truly mean that. Okay. Now, listen. I've farted in my life. We've all farted in our lives. We've done it around loved ones. And often the reaction is, that's the worst fart I've ever smelled in my life. There is something funny. Okay. There's something about farts, right? That the more intimate you are with the person, the more the fart that they produce seems to stink horrifically. You know? Like, don't get me wrong, a couple of my mates, they've farted in my presence, which number one is disgusting. Number two, it's horrible. Number three, it's sometimes pretty funny. And yeah, they stink, and I would be like, whoa, 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 I don't like that, you know? But generally, it subsides. Now, I've also been in bed with partners, previous partners, you know, and they've farted. And I will say this. I now know what it smells like when the gates of hell open up. I've never wanted to know what rotting flesh smells like, but I know that because my partners of years gone by have farted in bed while I've been there, okay? And don't get me wrong, yes, I farted in bed at the same time. I'm not trying to throw them under the bus. But all I'm saying is the closer you are to somebody intimately, the worse their farts are, and that is science. Trust me. Trust me on that. So I don't know. You know? When I say it was the worst fart I've ever smelled in my life, I'm actually, now I'm back to believing her. I just had ankle surgery and I was recovering from, so I imagine my immune system was focused on healing that. And guess what? That's science as well, and I believe that. Maybe in another circumstance, if I had been healthy, it wouldn't have happened. And also, when I say it was the worst fart I've ever smelled in my life, I truly mean that. So I think there was just a lot of factors combined to make this possible. But Christine added that her bizarre ordeal was definitely rare. I think it's actually more common to get pink eye from someone farting in your face. And that is so funny. If you give somebody pink eye, holy crap, that's unreal. No one's getting pink eye anymore, man. I feel like back in the day, everybody used to get pink eye. There was a lot more pink eye related pranks going on, you know? There was a lot more pink eye related pranks and people were getting pink eye. But in today's society, young people are eating more ass than ever. And I'm sorry that that's vulgar, and I do apologize about that. But in today's society, young people are eating ass with more vigor than has ever been seen before, okay? Yet, I'm never hearing about pink eye. So what's going on? You know, I'm telling you right now, my friend Craig growing up, he used to get pink eye 2-3 times a month because whenever he came over for sleepovers, people would fart on his pillow. Hilarious. Unreal. He's got pink eye. We all think it's hilarious. But I know people that every single weekend they're going home with strangers and they're just burying themselves in, I won't continue that sentence, but you know what I'm talking about. And they're walking around with the clearest eyes I've ever seen in my life. Why is there not any more pink eye in society? Riddle me that. Somebody get Dr. Karl on the phone about that one. They were never asking him the right questions. They were asking, oh, what's a cloud made of? You know? People are always asking Dr. Karl. People are always asking Dr. Karl, oh, what's a cloud made out of? You know? How many centimeters is an average snake in Australia? And that felt sexual, but I didn't mean it like that. You know? What's wood made from? And that kind of stuff. And no one wants to know those questions. I want to ask Dr. Karl, why is there no more pink eye in society? It used to be rampant. Dr. Karl, why is there no pink eye in society anymore? Please, if you know this guy, please tell him that I want to know that question. One time I met Dr. Karl actually at the TikTok Awards. Now I'm on the subject. I'm going kind of everywhere right now, but like we'll just try and tighten everything up, and we're just having fun, and it's a free podcast. And if you don't like it, then what? I can't help you, you know. So I met Dr. Karl at the TikTok Awards. This was last year. My beautiful housemate Maddie Spencer, she actually got me an invite as she was DJing the event, DJ Mad Day, one of the greatest DJs there are, right? And there is. I don't know if I got that grammatically correct. And I'm walking through the crowd, and you see a lot of, you know, familiar faces. That person has been on my phone screen. That person is always on my phone screen. That person, etc., etc. And I see Dr. Karl, and now I know Dr. Karl from TV and radio more so than TikTok, but I am under the impression that he has a presence on the platform. So he's there. And I imagine that his life is sort of people are drifting by him and running into him on the street and these kind of functions, and there might be a little bit of complimentary conversation going on, a little bit of small talk, as they say in the industry. And then generally the path would lead back to, all right, Dr. Karl, let's cut the bullshit. DK, let's cut the crap. I want to know if lizards have two hearts or not. Is it possible to microwave an echidna and for it to survive? Shit like that, you know? Why do, ballerinas do stuff? Why, there's a whole sort of ballerina field that a lot of questions must be asked about, But anyway, so I see this guy and I can just see immediately he doesn't want the small talk. He's got to go somewhere. He's probably got some press activities that he needs to do. And he just sees me and I clock him up and down. I give him the once over. This is Dr. Karl. Of course I'm going to do this. How many more opportunities do I have to run over my very own eyes, my baby blues over Dr. Karl? It may not ever happen again, So I look him up and down and I notice one little detail, right? But I keep that to myself for a second. Then he comes into my proximity. And because I've been looking at him, he thinks that I'm engaged and he doesn't want to do the small talk. He's busy. So he just says, hi. Immediately he goes, do you have a question? Now, this is the thing. If you presume something about me, I hate this. If you are going to presume that I want to ask you a question just because you're Dr. Karl, even though just before I said that I want to ask you about the pink eye stuff, I immediately, even if I did have a question, I don't have a question anymore because you don't know me. Okay? You don't know me. You don't know, you can't tell that I have a question for you just by walking past me at the TikTok Awards, brother. I don't care how many fucking doctorates you have. I don't care how many scientists you know. All right? I don't care how many laboratories you've been in. I don't care if you have test tubes at home. I don't care. Okay? If you presume something about me, this is a social event. I'm a social guy. You're in my world now. Okay? You're in my world now, Dr. Karl. And don't you forget it. But I like you as well. I like you a lot as a person. We don't have too much more time. These podcasts, I'm just doing half an hour. Okay, last week I did longer. I'm not doing it again. I might do it again when I get the right equipment, whatever. He says, did you have a question? And I say, no, Dr. Karl, but thank you for asking me. And he says, no worries. And he's about to leave, right? And I get him. I don't grab him, but I softly sort of embrace his shoulder with my palm, like this. And he turns back, maybe thinking that an attack was going to come because I'm quite a, domineering figure. 6'6", 6'8" when I wake up. This was at evening time, so I was probably 6'6". But depending on the shoes I was wearing as well, I could have been slightly higher. And I'm broad. I've always been broad. I'm doing the 75 hard challenge right now, so I'm actually getting much broader and thicker and denser. Plus, I've been taking creatine, so there's some water weight going on. But even back then, pretty scary guy. And he kind of looks at me weird, and I go, if you'll remember in the story, I said I noticed one detail. So I'm bringing it back to that. He looked at me like this, and I go, excuse me, Dr. Karl, just before you keep going. And it felt good because he assumed that I fucking had a question, even though I didn't have a fucking question for him. Who does he think he is? I mean, he's Dr. Karl, and I respect that, but he looks at me weird. I go, sorry, Dr. Karl, just before you continue, your fly's undone. So here's my question. I didn't say this, but then it would have been fucking unreal if I continued like this. So here's my question. How long has that been down, buddy? And then I would have just dropped the White Claw that I was drinking and walked away and walked into the EQ and then walked over to, the park over there. And then kept walking and then gone into the pond that's there and just kept walking through it because it's actually only about knee height and some swans and shit would have been going around me. And I would have kept walking onto the other side, onto the grass. And then I would have kept walking, going onto the road, whatever the road is that takes me towards the beach. And I would have kept walking and gone onto the beach. And then I would have kept walking and I would have gone into the ocean. And then I would have kept walking at the bottom of the ocean like a hippopotamus until I got to the next land formation, which if I'm walking sort of northeast, could potentially be somewhere in Europe. And I would have lived there and set up shop. And before every single conversation with these new people that I've just met, I would have said, one time I met Dr. Karl and his fly was down, even though he thought that I wanted to ask him a question. I didn't want that. And I just wanted to tell him that his fly was down. And then I did ask him a question. I said, how long has that fly been down? And now I live here. Okay. So do not fuck with me again, Dr. Karl. I was just trying to look out for you, dude. And I'll do it because I plan on going to the TikTok Awards again this year, and I know that you're going to be there. And I won't have a question for you, but I hope we can be friends because I looked out for you. It feels aggressive. I don't know. But anyway, if you do know Dr. Karl, let's put a bow on this one. If you do know Dr. Karl, ask him about the pink eye thing. Ask him about the pink eye thing because I think he'll probably know about that. Anyway, that's the news segment. We're looking at about another 3 minutes here, ladies and gentlemen. 4 to 5, 5 to 6, 6 to 7. Yeah, maybe that. Maybe 4 or 5 minutes. So what's been going on in my life? That's the news segment. Done. And I liked it. And it took us to a place that we didn't know. But this is the thing about these new segments. You just don't know what's going to happen. And I plan on having a lot of new segments in this show. I plan on having sort of like a hotline operation. I plan on looking at clips and analyzing clips. I want to have guests. I want to have other stuff. So we're going to try that out. And that was the news segment, and I thought it did pretty well. So, but let me know if you thought it was a good section or not. It wasn't really clear, and that's the other thing about the segments in the future. It's not going to be clear. You're not going to know. Oh yeah, it starts now, it ends now. It's going to blend. The whole thing is a blend. You know, I'm dynamic. I'm dynamic with my podcasting the way that I am when I'm cooking. You know, some people might just want to get a Mexican food, and I understand that, and I appreciate that. But you know, my style of cooking is like you might get like a Thai style burrito because I blend. I'm a fusion guy, and this is a fusion podcast. Anyway, what's been going on? I was just in Newcastle last night. Love Newcastle. Come to my show there in July. Please, for the love of God, I want to sell out the comedy club up there. I love Newcastle. I met a guy. Okay, I've got another list here, but we're not going to get through it. I was filming with the Kind of a Big Deal guys, and Lily, and I apologize, Lily, I don't know your last name, but we were filming some more of this dabble content. I'll go back to Newcastle in a second. This gambling ad stuff. And these videos, they've been getting millions of views on TikTok, you know? I'm talking like 5.5, 3 million. Huge videos. I'm getting recognized more from these dabble ads than I've ever been recognized for anything ever in my comedic career. And I'm on a YouTube channel with 2.25 million subscribers. It's the universe telling me that I need to be in the gambling world. I think. But I'm hesitant because we all know gambling, no, not really good, even though it's fun and even though you can have a great time doing it. This is the thing. I don't have the gambling bug, so I think that I could kind of live in that sphere pretty comfortably. Talking about gambling, facilitating gambling, because I'm not too interested in actually gambling. But maybe that's the thing. If you have seen the dabble ads, please let me know what you think about them. So last week I was doing that. State of Origin was on Wednesday. The Wednesday just passed. New South Wales won, thank God. I hate when these Queenslanders are just bragging, oh yeah, we're better than. I hate when Queenslanders brag about winning State of Origin, you know? They was like, yeah, we won 8 in a row. We won 8 in a row, mate. We got Cam Smith, he's one of the best players of all time, the best player of all time. He played for Queensland, mate. Darren Lockyer, Alfie, whatever his name was. Gordon Tallis, mate. That's our field. That's what we dominated in New South Wales. You guys suck. And it's like, yeah, look, you historically have a better track record at State of Origin, but the thing is, you live in Queensland. Okay? You live in Queensland. I live in New South Wales. It's a superior state. Yes, sometimes you may occasionally beat us in a rugby league match and maybe even win the series. And yes, you've won 8 years in a row at some point, you know? But guess what? We beat you on Wednesday and we come from a better state. How about you focus on getting more air conditioning around the city of Brisbane? And then we can talk. All right, buddy? So that happened. State of Origin. I've got no more time to talk about anything else. I was hanging out with a great artist, Ramesh, my favorite ceramicist, probably my favorite Australian artist right now. I don't have any time to talk about that. Tigers versus Cowboys. Tigers went down 32-28. The game was absolutely sensational. The game was absolutely dog shit, but we had this comeback that was absolutely sensational in about the last 15 minutes. And Lockie Galvin, you are a dog, and I've been your biggest supporter, but I can't believe what's happened recently, and you've absolutely thrown this Tigers season, which had such promise at the start of the year, into complete disarray. And I've really put on top of your shoulders and top of your head the chaos that's ensued. So whatever. I hope you have a great season and hope you have a great career. Hopefully we can be friends in the future. But like I'm just saying, you did fuck up and your management team fucked up. And that's all I'm saying. So that's that, okay? Went to the Comedy Store, shot with Annie Boyle. There was plenty. I wrote it a little too close to the sun there. The recording ran out, and I apologize, but I was rounding things off anyway. Hey, listen, thank you very much for listening to the Pat Doherty Podcast. This is episode number 6. Until next week, I appreciate it. See you later.